Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we are all set. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Hani, and I have a sweet guest here. Her name is Victoria, and today we would like to talk about the topic community colleges, or also America's Best Kept Secret. But first of all, I would like to introduce Education USA. And then I'm going to just, give the floor to Victoria, and she'll introduce community colleges to you. So if we can, yes, great, thank you. So what Education USA is, it's an organization all over the world, actually. And it provides free and accurate information about studying opportunities in the United States. So I work in an advising center in Prague. We have other advising centers in the Czech Republic, so you can visit us. Feel free to contact us with your questions regarding studying and working in the United States. As for the advising center in Prague, yes, Victoria, you can skip. Thank you. You can find us on Malá Strana, which is in the very heart of Prague, and we are open. So you can visit us. You can also visit our other centers. They are in Ústí nad Labem, in Pilsen, in Brno, and in Ostrava. And in that advising center, we usually do seminars and webinars. So like this one, you can join us either online or in person, and we do those. It usually reflects the admission process, or actually the year, so what you're currently facing. So right now, I know that many students who would like to apply to the United States are researching their options. So they are looking into what schools they would like to put on their wish list or dream list. So that's why we chose to do a community college webinar today. But then it's going to be about scholarships and so forth. So feel free to join. We also have a library. So when you stop by, you can borrow books on how to select the university of your choice and how to prepare for SAT or ACT exams. So you can do that in our advising center. And we also offer consultations. So you can definitely reach out to me, and we can either do an online or in-person consultation, and I'll answer all of your questions and concerns very individually. You can also subscribe to our monthly newsletter, which will come to your email address on the 1st of each month. And I put news from the US higher education system, and I put to-do lists. So if you are in the 3rd grade or in the 2nd grade of your high school, there's going to be a to-do list. So you will definitely not miss any deadlines or anything you have to do when applying to US university or college. And you can also follow us on social media. So that way you will know about all of our webinars and events, and you will find some useful information there. And so this is the Education USA in the Czech Republic. My office is at the Fulbright Commission in Prague, and definitely you can reach out to me via Facebook, Instagram, or email address. And now please welcome Victoria. She's an ETA, meaning English Teaching Assistant, which is a Fulbright program, and she is in Boskovice in the Czech Republic. She teaches English at a local high school, and she's going to talk about the topic of community colleges, which is an undergraduate level of education that you can definitely apply to, and she will tell you more about that. So hello, Victoria, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. I'm really excited to talk about community colleges. I feel like doing this presentation was my baby in a way. I feel really passionately about it. So as you said, community colleges are a form of undergraduate education in the United States. You can kind of think of it as the first half of a bachelor's degree. Though they offer other programs beyond academic programs, you can think of them as vocational or technical as well. But to introduce the opportunities in the US and then specifically at community colleges, I wanted to share this quote, which I first heard a few months ago on National Public Radio. I'm a big fan of NPR, and I use this in another presentation, and I just really love it. And it says, "The most striking thing about the US higher educational establishment is its variety and its openness." And this is from James Fallows, who is a former editor of US News and World Report. You might be familiar with US News and World Report because they rank colleges and universities in the United States. And this article and the podcast about it was talking about why we should get away from ranking colleges and universities, as well as what's new, ranking secondary and elementary schools, which doesn't really provide much context, especially because people go to school in a local geographic region. So it doesn't really mean much to compare those kinds of schools. And I also wanted to share this quote because of the variety and openness in the United States. You should not focus on which school is in the top 10. You should focus on what's a good fit for you. And perhaps that fit is not part of the Ivy League. So I want us to get away from thinking that the elite group of Ivy League schools or similar schools are the only legitimate options for higher and further education. All right, so this is how I'm going to introduce my story a bit. So when I was your age in high school, I was pushed by my parents and my teachers to go to a top tier school, like an Ivy League school, because I had the work ethic and the grades to do so. I wasn't good enough to be recruited for sport, so this was purely academic. And I applied to some of the schools that you see here when I was in high school, and then also later as a transfer student. So all the schools that you see on this screen, I earned acceptance to at some point. So I actually started my college career in the fall of 2015 at the University of Chicago. And even though it's an excellent school, no doubt about that, it was not the right fit for me, especially because I was very worried about the financial obligations going to this university. So I actually took an impromptu gap year, earned some money, and then decided to go to Brookdale Community College. And then at that point, I focused on finishing the associate's degree, basically the first half of the bachelor's at that school. And then I transferred to Columbia University in New York City. I was there for about a year, but I also at that time decided to go into education. And it would be financially better for me, and it would save me time if I transferred to Monmouth University, which is only 5 minutes from my house in New Jersey. So I actually graduated from there, earning my bachelor's. And then the following year, during the pandemic, I earned my master's from Monmouth as well. So most of my time at Monmouth was actually online during the pandemic, but I would recommend looking at more local schools and not these big names that you would see on the screen. And to this day, I have to say, my most difficult college course was during my first year at Brookdale Community College. It was an ethics course. We had a lot of reading and a lot of discussion. So don't discount community colleges just by the name. Also, because community colleges are by definition very local, you're also going to get a unique experience. So I'll talk about Brookdale Community College for a moment. This is my alma mater, and to this day, my favorite school that I ever attended. So I have the link for you if you want to visit the website. For me, it was very affordable. I had the benefit of the NJ STARS program, which is a scholarship given to the top 15% of high school students in New Jersey. So that covered my tuition and fees for 2 years. All I had to pay were other kinds of fees, books, and transportation. And it's also very, very diverse. You might think it's just the people who live in that area, and the area is typically white. However, it is very diverse because we have a lot of international students. I, for instance, worked with a student from Mexico. We had 2 twins from India as well. Students from Brazil and China were represented. We even had some tour groups from China that came to Brookdale Community College to visit. And also when I was at Brookdale, here is just a list of my achievements. I especially want to mention Phi Theta Kappa. This honor society is the only international honor society for 2-year students. And through this society, you can get exclusive access to scholarships that you can use for different universities once you move on to a 4-year school. So that's something that you cannot get at this point if you apply. I also participated in a colloquium. That's the long phrase that you see underneath Phi Theta Kappa. And I was part of Global Citizenship Distinction Initiative. That was basically an effort to be enrolled in a wide range of global focused courses and activities. I also did an honors case study challenge about voter suppression and voter fraud. And I was also on the New Jersey All-State Academic Team. So I was one of 2 students selected from Brookdale to represent all the community college students in the state. And we had a special ceremony in the state capitol in Trenton. And my college president also attended that event. And I also served as the graduate trustee on the board of trustees at Brookdale. And I was elected to that position. I served for a year, and it was the experience that made me want to go into education. So Brookdale as a total brought me to where I am today and coming to the Czech Republic and wanting to be a teacher. So I have to thank Brookdale for quite a bit in my short life so far. And I'm sure it will do much more for me going forward. Okay, so I have some statistics to share with you as well. So the United States has, according to one report, 942 community colleges in the United States. So if you haven't looked at them yet, there's a lot that you can see. There's also 41% of US undergraduates enrolled in community colleges in the fall of 2018. So the number generally hovers around 40%. However, that number has fallen because of the pandemic, unfortunately. For example, in a report from National Public Radio in October of 2021, they said that across the United States, freshman or first year enrollment fell 20.8% over 2 years at community colleges. So if you are interested at all, they would be very happy to have you. Normally they are anyway, but especially now. And also here is the average tuition and fees for a student enrolled at a public 2-year school in 2021 to 2022, $3,800, which if you are an American is such a deal. And that's compared to over $10,000 at a public 4-year college in the state that you also live in. If you go out of state, it's almost $23,000. And if you go to a private school, then it's over $38,000 on average. So the cost benefit is unmatched at this point. And I do also want to mention that a lot of students may think that going to community college or a 4-year school is an either or situation, but I think a community college is like a launch pad to eventually go to a 4-year school. So don't think of it as a death sentence in any way if you think about community college. It also gives you more time to think about your options. And if you go to the US to stay at a community college, then you can also travel around the country to see which areas you might like for a 4-year school. So that gives you 2 extra years to shop around and look at your options.
So yeah, because our listeners are mostly from the Czech Republic, let me just repeat the deal, which is that you get your bachelor's degree in the United States when you study for 4 years. And when you go to a community college, you spend there 2 years, and then you can transfer and finish the 2 years at a university or college, and you can get the bachelor's degree. Or you can definitely apply to college or university right away, spend 4 years and get the bachelor's. But as you heard from Victoria, you saw the financial situation and so forth. That is why we are doing this webinar, so that you can consider the community college and its advantages.
Yes. Excellent, thank you. So another benefit that I want to mention is the diversity that we often think of with America, you can actually see at community colleges. So yes, again, they're very local, but they're international in some ways. And Brookdale, for instance, has an international student club with regular activities. I believe later this month, they're going to have an event about Taiwan. So they're inviting a professor to come and talk about Taiwan as well, which is another hot button topic beyond Russia and Ukraine right now. I know that's really big in the news. So these other benefits in reference to diversity are that among community college students, 51%, more than half, identify as non-white. 44% are 25 or older. So I actually had quite a few classes with people who were my parents' age, in their 50s, even 60s. 67% earned income less than $50,000 a year. In the US, this would be considered like low income or low middle income. So you're gonna see a wider range with the income levels here. 29% are parents. I had classes with parents as well. We talked about their kids. And 30% are from immigrant families, either from international families or because they had recently come to the United States, maybe as young children or teenagers. And I put this in sharp contrast to what you might hear about with the top tier schools, especially the Ivy League, because they have a history of exclusion, especially with women, African Americans, and Jews. And in fact, Columbia University, which I attended, did not integrate women until 1981. However, they also have Barnard College, which is an all-women's college, and that's part of the university. It's kind of a complicated relationship, but I guess they didn't feel the need to allow women into that school until 1981. So something to think about, and there are still many allegations about which groups of people really get to benefit from going to top-tier schools. And you're also less likely, again, to see the kinds of groups mentioned on this slide. I also have a link to this New York Times article if you're ever interested in reading that. But we tend to think of top tier schools as engines of social mobility, the rags to riches story that you think about with the American dream. Not always true, especially because they tend to keep wealth concentrated in certain families. It's actually how Jared Kushner got into Harvard. That's a long story if you ever want to look into that. Okay. Next, we'll go to some advantages and admittedly some disadvantages of going to community colleges. I don't want to paint this as a purely rosy picture. So the advantages include that there's a faculty focus on teaching, not always on research. When I went to the different four-year schools, I'd often see that the professors were focused on publishing some kind of paper, which is excellent, but that means there's less time for them to mentor you or to have them be available for office hours. At community college, I had a lot of time with particular professors who I was very close with. So I think that's another benefit, especially with community colleges. Also, the credits typically transfer to four-year schools. You have to be very careful when you do this, however, because sometimes they'll take the credit, but maybe it doesn't fit into their core program. So it's just listed as an elective or extra course. So be careful with that. And on average, when students transfer to a four-year school, they might lose 13 credits, which is a semester's worth. So you can actually have like an insurance policy and back yourself up if you do maybe a winter or summer course, or just take an extra course each semester. Again, be very careful. So what I did when I was a student at Brookdale was I checked the course catalogs, the list of courses at the schools where I was interested in attending. So whenever I was looking for enrollment for the next semester at Brookdale, I would compare it with a catalog at Columbia, for instance, to see if it worked. And Columbia actually did accept all of my credits from Brookdale Community College.
Wow, that's great. That's a great deal.
Yeah,
that
people
you
are very
transfer.
surprised.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. So you hear that. Okay. So whoever is listening, just you can definitely transfer it from Brookdale to Columbia.
Yes, yes. Actually, quite a few Brookdale people have done that. And again, just be very careful. Also, as I've already told you, it's very affordable. You can save tens of thousands of dollars. And they're also smaller class sizes because you will never see a big lecture hall. Like my dad went to Rutgers University in New Jersey in the 1980s, and he would have classes with 200, 300 people. You will never see that at community college. I know that's like a joke of a stereotype, but it happens.
No, you will actually come across that in the Czech Republic as well. If you study at Masaryk University, Charles University, those are like, I studied social pedagogy, which is basically working with children in their free time, also like pedagogy. And yeah, the classes were super huge and we were just silently sitting there taking notes, and it was not interactive at all. And it was actually the semester that we were just sitting there taking notes. And then once per semester, there was this like exam period where you worked very, very hard and, you know, you had to pass the exam, but it wasn't kind of like for the whole time that you would have to prepare and so forth. And you would have like smaller classes and hands-on activities. So this is something that I could really appreciate when studying in the United States. Like I didn't study at a community college. I studied at Moravian University in Pennsylvania. But even though the classes were small and the teachers were amazing, so definitely.
Yeah. I remember also I was in the honors program at Brookdale, and those classes were even smaller. So you might have it with 10 or 15 people, which is good for discussion. All right, so general disadvantages. I put this top because I think it is important to mention. So community colleges might have a lack of a typical college experience. So if you're expecting the big football games, you're probably not going to get that at community college. Some do have American football teams, but again, not very common. But that doesn't mean that you can't go to the local four-year school and go to their football games, or maybe you have a friend who goes to another big school and you can go to those games too. Also, granted, there are limited earnings if you go to a community college, but that's only at the time that you are a student there, and then when you have the associate's degree. If you plan to eventually go on to the four-year school to get the bachelor's, you'll be fine. But try not to just settle for the associate's degree. It's a starting point. But we also want to make sure that you know that just having an associate's degree is better than having a high school diploma. So every step of the way, you're going to see an increase in wages, but it's not the big increase you would see from high school to a bachelor's degree.
Also, I would like to jump in here. So because you are Czech students mostly, if you are searching for an American experience when it comes to education, you can earn your associate's degree in the United States, and then you can come back to the Czech Republic and then maybe study here for your bachelor's and so forth. So it doesn't have to be 4 years in the States for your bachelor's, but you can spend there 2 years and earn an associate degree and then come back and finish your studies here. So this is totally up to you.
Yeah, you can mix and match, definitely. And I know the honors program at Brookdale has transfer agreements with multiple universities in the United States, but also overseas. They have one with a business school in France, a university in Wales, and I think Lincoln University in England as well. So there are international options just with transferring from a 2-year school to a 4-year school. All right, so the big thing that I want to mention, especially because you are Czech students and you're not originally from the local area of a community college, there will be fewer housing options. So most students stay with their parents. So finding housing might be more of a challenge. Of course, the college will assist you in finding housing. And I was in discussions when I was the graduate trustee about trying to create some kind of campus housing. So that is a discussion at many community colleges because they do want to create that college vibe on campus.
So here, right. I would just sorry for jumping in. It's just a little bit different. If you do have an experience with your high school studies in the United States, you might have experience living with the host family. So when it comes to studying a university or a community college, you are most likely be living in a dormitories or some other housing options. It's not going to be with the host parents, host family anymore.
Right. Okay, and then finally, low graduation rates might deter some students from going to a community college. But what I want to mention here is that the data actually lies about community college graduation rates, because according to the US federal government, if you transfer from a school without earning a degree from that school, you're considered a dropout, which hurts the graduation rate. And to show you how ridiculous that is, Barack Obama transferred from Occidental College to Columbia University. And because he didn't finish at that first school, the federal government would have classified him as a dropout, even though he earned a bachelor's degree and eventually a law degree. And that still goes on. So when you see data about low graduation rates, I believe the one at Brookdale is 32%, again, doesn't tell the whole story. And a lot of people transfer after only 1 year before earning the associate's degree. So you should really stick it out for the 2 years. And in some cases, you can graduate in a year and a half if you take the right amount of credits each semester.
That's really interesting, especially about the dropouts. I've never heard about it. So yeah, be careful. Like, of course, we know like what media says. So this is interesting.
Yeah, and it's especially surprising because about a third of all American undergraduates eventually transfer. So you have way more dropouts than there really are, according to the federal government. So next, I'll talk about just a few special community colleges, some ones that are notable to mention, in addition to Brookdale Community College. So Rockland Community College is in the state of New York. It's part of the State University of New York system. The faculty includes some Fulbright alumni, which is very special for our program. And it's 25 miles northwest of New York City. So you can easily go into New York City every day or on the weekends, whatever you would like. Also on the note of Fulbright alumni, Brookdale Community College also has 2 Fulbright alumni. And I had 2 classes with one of them. And he was a Fulbright scholar in Australia in, I believe, 1996. And he's an excellent person, excellent professor. And I remember him jumping around the room and getting very excited when talking about international relations and comparative politics.
You know what? I can't wait for the time when I'm doing a webinar, 3 years later, and I'll have an ETA like you are, and she'll be saying like, I had a teacher, she was an ETA before she was Victoria, and she was so cool, and thanks to her, I was accepted to this program, and now I'm doing this webinar. So this is amazing that you got inspired by, a Fulbright scholar, and now you're doing this. That's amazing.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. And he also messaged me after I got the Fulbright, and we were talking about it. So yeah, he's an excellent person. If you want me to get in touch with him, I'll let you know. All right, and we have De Anza College. It's located in Silicon Valley. So if you're interested in technology, this might be a place for you. It has a high transfer rate to the University of California schools. So like UCLA, UC Berkeley, and I actually got into UCLA and UC Berkeley, if you remember from an earlier slide. But if you don't live in California, it is very difficult to find the finances to go to those schools. Like for instance, when I got in, they wanted $55,000 from my family each year. So very cost prohibitive. So if you're able to be in California and maybe get a scholarship through Phi Theta Kappa, it's much more affordable. I actually know someone who transferred to UC Berkeley from Bergen Community College in New Jersey. So she was able to do that. And she's originally from Albania, I believe. Right. And then we have Joliet Junior College. This was the very first community college in the United States, and it's founded in 1901. It's near Chicago, and it offers more than 180 degrees, and certificates. So a lot of options. And then we also have Walla Walla Community College. And this one won the Aspen Prize for Community College Excellence in 2013. So this is affiliated with the Aspen Institute. It features viticulture, grape harvesting, and enology wine production program. So I just had to mention that because I'm in Moravia, so it might be of interest to some students.
That's amazing. Oh my God, I've never heard so. This is great. And even with the UCLA transfers that, the De Anza College has, such opportunities. That's so great to know. Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you remember earlier, there are more than 900 community colleges, and this is just a list of 4.
So how many slides do we have?
You can learn. Yep. So you have a lot of options, way more than you think. Okay. So at that point, that's the end of my presentation. And here's my contact information, email address, Czech phone number, and US phone number. I'm also on WhatsApp, so you can look for that with my US number. And I'm also on Instagram. So if you want to message me, please do so. My students at the secondary school here do it all the time. So feel free to do that.
Victoria, thank you. It was amazing. And I hope that people are taking print screens of this slide, and they're gonna get in touch with you, because this was really amazing. And I feel that when students come to me for, advice or anything, they usually come with the list of schools, and there is always like those Ivy Leagues such as Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Brown, and so forth. And I always feel like, they forget the community colleges. And I try to tell them that it's not a shame to go to a community college, because I just feel that it's a general feeling here that it is not prestigious enough and so forth. And, when we heard, like, especially what the financial difference is, it's amazing. And it can really, it is something that makes you think and maybe reconsider your selection, your school selection. So this was amazing. Thank you again for joining us today and for sharing your own experience with community colleges. And as people can see, you got accepted to plenty beautiful schools, prestigious schools. And look at you, you went to community college, then you transferred, and now you are a Fulbright, ETA, and your career is shaping greatly. So this is amazing. And I hope that other students will also pursue this path of education in the United States. So yeah,
thank you.
I think we can definitely show the last slide if there is something else. Perfect. There is just my email address. So if there is, or if there are any other questions, I am not checking the chat box underneath the live stream. So if you are posting questions, I'll look at it later and we will respond with Victoria together. If you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to Victoria or to myself. Here is my email address, and definitely check out our website, the EducationUSA. You can find us on the website fulbright.cz, and there is advising center. So get in touch and go for it. Studying in the States is amazing. So consider it as one of your options. So thank you for joining and have a great week. Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.